I actually have a freebie that I just put out on my website, and it's something I call Date Yourself. And now before I completely lose you, it has nothing to do with if you're in a relationship or not. It's about treating you the way you would date you. And for me, I was so disconnected with a person that I was, and I had to reestablish that relationship. I didn't want to feel, so I didn't feel for decades. I never addressed anything. I was so completely not in touch with who I was as a person. And so what do? Let's think about the first 3 months in a relationship. What is it that you do? You get to know the person, right? You tell them, wow, you look really great today. Maybe you do something special. You cook them a special meal. You ask them, what do you like? What do you don't like? And so think of you should be doing this throughout your relationship, wherever you're at. But just think about those first 3 months. And you're going through and you're saying, what do I do to make this person happy? And do it to yourself.
Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost we're a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself, a loved one, or you're maybe in recovery a long, long time, or maybe it's just a few days even, you're going to find all kinds of information, topics, and really a lot of nuggets of hope to help you live a happy, successful, and a sober life. My name is Rob Hamby. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today. And as usual, I've got the coolest job in the world where I get to meet and talk to, have great conversations with super, super interesting people. And I'd like to introduce you to Jen Sugermeyer. Jen?
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
It is my pleasure. You've sent me over a little bit of bio stuff. So to set this up a little bit for the audience, let me tell everybody a little bit about you. Though Jen has appeared did appear, I should say, to be a successful corporate businesswoman with a beautiful home and everything that you would see, physically fit. She's really, like a lot of people in addiction, hiding a double life from the rest of the world. And then later this went into jails and hospitals and straight to the office, or even at the same time, her life was really entirely unmanageable. Then somebody told her 7 sweet words, and her world changed immediately. And a decade of trying to get sober finally became her reality. Today, she's taken the scars and the past that she took and trademarked it into a program that she now uses to help others claim their power over their life and their mind. Her book on Amazon is a #1 bestseller. It's called Reset, and in that she unveils her methodology and those 7 sweet words that give the reader what she tried for a decade to discover. She's been on CBS, ABC, iHeartRadio, Mental Health News Radio, and a whole bunch of other stuff, podcasts, etc. So really, really happy. And by the way, she's been in Recovery Today, I think 3-4 months ago at an article. So thanks so much for taking a little bit of time here. We're all kind of captives at the house, but appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
So, I normally say tell everybody a little bit about yourself, but obviously I've got this wonderful bio that I just went through, but let's kind of back up a little bit kind of from the story and give everybody a little bit of a feeling of who you are. And then, so I don't forget, I don't think I will, one thing that you and I really resonated with back and forth at first on email was the topic of fear. And I'd really like to kind of dive into that as much as we can because it's something I've struggled with for a long, long time. So please, tell everybody a little bit more of your story than just kind of the bio there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that gives a good high level from where I was when I realized I had an issue. But my journey started much before. It started decades before I even knew that I had a problem, really. And when I look back, it all started when I had an eating disorder. And it was 5 years where I had learned to live this double life. And it was a life that I knew wasn't mainstream society. And so I kept that hidden. And once I got a handle on that, then it was just one addiction that led to another. And then all of a sudden I was in my mid-30s, and I was in and out of jail. I was in and out of hospitals. I was literally practicing for speeches, honest to goodness, in jail for the CEO that I had to give later that day. And that was on multiple occasions, right? And so, I mean, talk about unmanageability. But I bring it back to eating disorders because I had learned at such a young age, these addictive behaviors and this double life. And before I knew it, one thing had piled on onto another. And then here I was, and I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the face staring back at me. So that was a little bit about my journey. And I had really tried to keep that behind closed doors as much as I could. I knew that my drinking wasn't normal. It started out fun, and it got to a point where, people were calling me out, and I was blacking out, and people were carrying me. And so I really just started to isolate at that point, a story like much of us have. And I thought I could separate those worlds, but I couldn't. And I hated that person who I was. But I identified with the person that was in front of you. So who am I? I'm the person that was always there right in front of you. But I'm grateful today to say that I've been able to address that person that I kept hidden for so long. And really, I didn't love the person in the mirror, and now I do. And those 7 sweet words were when a gentleman told me, he said, Jen, you need to learn to love yourself. And it was from that moment that it wasn't
need to love yourself. You need to learn to love yourself. That's
Yes. You need to learn to love yourself. That's right. And it wasn't some of the reactions of, do you remember what you did last night? Or, it wasn't approaching me with hatred or anger or, coming at me, with negative feelings. It was general care and concern. And that's really when I just realized that I was going to be alone and living in this body that I hated. And that's when my story began. So
let me ask you kind of the obvious question. So the 7 words again, you need to learn to love yourself. It's something I think that probably everybody can relate to. And I was texting. Now I like to say a good friend of mine. He's going to be our next cover. We'll be publishing here in the next few days our next issue, and then this will be an issue after that. But I was telling him that in my college days I had a low self-esteem, even though it was interesting. I had all of these kind of accomplishments that I'd done. I had. Or just after my college days, I should say, or throughout it, I had an engineering degree. I was a 2nd degree black belt, and I had a karate school and a pretty girlfriend. I had a lot of stuff that was for like a young kid, but really trying to figure out who I am. And it immediately jumps out of why don't we love ourselves? Like, I was texting this guy and I was saying, I finally came to this realization. I'm not so bad. I can't be so bad. Or, how am I? Because I looked at the people that I had that were close friends, and I thought they were all really awesome. And I had this revelation that, well, if all these people, if I'm a friend of all these people, I probably can't be so bad. But the elephant in the room in terms of loving yourself is why. Like, why do we see ourselves in a light like that where we feel like we're unlovable?
Yeah, I took a look back at my life, and I remember when I was 5, and I was so convinced I was going to be a singer. I was going to be on stage, and you couldn't convince me otherwise. And I didn't have that great of a voice. I was sort of an awkward child, but you couldn't convince me otherwise. And then here I was, 35, and I hated that person. My self-esteem was completely trashed. And, when I was 5, I didn't know that I was tall or that I was different or that I was, and it was the world that I interpreted, and I mapped myself up against people. And even some people told me, and I internalized, you know, I'm 6'1", and I love it now, but it was sort of an awkward thing growing up, you know.
Good Lord,
And
6'1" is actually pretty tall for a woman, I gotta say.
it's really tall, and I usually wear 3-inch heels, so here I come. You can't miss me.
Did you marry I don't know if you're married, you know, I always look at a woman at 6'1", I'm like, okay, that's, that person's going to marry an NBA player or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I get approached sometimes. I think people want little NBA people to come into the world, but anyway, it's an awkward conversation. Anyway, but yeah. So I mean, but I didn't know any different when I was 5, and I think that's very much how our life is. You know, we start out so optimistic, and then life just happens, and it starts to pile on, and we get disconnected from that person, whether that be our self-esteem or whether that be in other areas in our life. And instead of taking the time to self-reflect and connect with ourselves and support ourselves, the layers just pile on, and all of a sudden, you being your own, I mean, you are the ember inside. You are the one that keeps your fire going, and you've completely burned it out. And so it's reconnecting that flame. And I think that's really the difference, is that we don't take the time to reconnect with ourselves along the way.
Well, how do we do that? How is it that we do that? I mean, I guess the corollary question of that whole thing is, you know, number one, why don't we love ourselves? But then the next question is like, well, how do we start to? Is it kind of like looking at yourself like you would, like, I love my kids. I mean, it was actually easier to love them when they were little and not teenagers. I'm crazy about them, of course, joke intended, but like, do you look at yourself or who you are as like a little kid that you would be nurturing type of a thing, your child? I mean, how do you start to love yourself?
I actually have a freebie that I just put out on my website, and it's something I call Date Yourself. And now, before I completely lose you, it has nothing to do with if you're in a relationship or not. It's about treating you the way you would date you. And for me, I was so disconnected with a person that I was, and I had to reestablish that relationship. I didn't want to feel, so I didn't feel for decades. I never addressed anything. I was so completely not in touch with who I was as a person. And so what do? Let's think about the first 3 months in a relationship. What is it that you do? You get to know the person, right? You tell them, wow, you know, you look really great today. Maybe you do something special. You cook them a special meal. You ask them, what do you like? What do you don't like? And so think of the first, you should be doing this throughout your relationship, wherever you're at. But just think about those first 3 months. And you're going through and you're saying, what do I do to make this person happy? And do it to yourself. Take that little bit of time and really reconnect with yourself. And I tell you what, I had to say affirmations, and I say them all the time. And I tell myself I am enough, that I am worth it. And telling yourself, and if you say it enough, you're going to start believing it. Because what happened is throughout your life, you said, I'm not enough. I'm not worth it. And you started to believe it. So now you have to reverse engineer your brain.
I completely love that. And I resonate really strongly with it. So we're recording this right now in April. By the way, I do want to talk about the coronavirus, because this is April 7th when we're recording this, and this is like, my wife just told me that she's been home now for a month. So I kind of losing track. Like the joke I saw the other day was, you always said that you wish the weekend would never end. Well, now it has. Now that's happened, because it's like the weekend every single freaking Groundhog Day here. But what I'll say is, so I'm coming up on 22 years of a marriage in July. Marriage is pretty tough, and it's tough, no question about it. And a couple of years ago, I hit a rough patch, or we hit a rough patch, and it was pretty dicey, man. But one thing that I did, besides like how do you save your marriage and stuff like that, I started digesting this information. Exactly what you just said is what I did. Is I started thinking about, if I were dating my wife, even if she wasn't my wife, maybe she was somebody who comes next, what would I be like doing right now? So, like, for example, if I had a date coming over to my house wouldn't be messy. if I told somebody that I was dating that I was going to do something, which I think is a cornerstone is trust, I would make sure that I did it, whether it was fixing something, taking something out, or whatever. I would be clean and dressed and groomed and kind. And if you were dating the person when they're talking to you, you would look. So in short, exactly what you're talking about doing for yourself, I literally turned my whole marriage around. Fell in love again, by the way. I think it kind of ebbs and flows just by acting like, okay, if I were dating this person, if I were actually, that's why I love that. If I were dating this person, what would I do? Would I leave my crap all over the place? Would I talk mean? Would I do, etc.? And it's so easy just with that one simple thing. So I love that in terms of if you're dating yourself. That's pretty cool.
And it's so easy for us to think about if there's another human being in our space, what would we do for that person? But how often do we stop and think, what should I be doing for me? And it should be the same, right? Do unto others as you would, right? Good old golden rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really should be. And I think that actually as you do these things for yourself, that you're, like I said, that you're dressed, you're groomed, you're nice, you're pleasant to people and things like that. I think that people start treating you differently, but the main thing is I think you start thinking differently about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, your self-esteem is improved. I mean, once you're putting boundaries in your life, and I mean, it just everything, and the glow comes from the inside out. I was putting on makeup and I didn't recognize that face, and I'll tell you, I remember it was like I thought if I made myself with all this makeup on my face that I would be able to recognize her. And I never did. It didn't matter how much makeup.
What kind of corporate job did you have when you were in jail preparing to give a speech to the CEO?
Oh my gosh.
What industry was that?
So I was working in IT. I'm not technical, but I'm in management. I mean, I've got global teams, or I had global teams working for me. And I was, I was reporting into.
It's not like it's a little bitty company. This is like a big company you're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking global, and not just one company that pulled these shenanigans with.
It's so crazy that you'd be in jail and you're thinking, I got to give a speech at 3 to the CEO.
Yeah, I tried. I also remember exercising, getting up and doing exercises because I thought they would release me. Like, well, if I was up exercising, then she must be sober. Get her out of here, right?
That's hilarious. She's really motivated, and obviously she's going to be fit. And
right, she's fine. She can probably drive out of here.
That's hilarious. All right, so how did you come up with I have an idea, but give me behind your bestseller on Amazon, Reset. How the name comes? Give us a little background on that.
Yeah, well, the name was always intended because it was like I hit the reset button on my life, and I always had this visual of reset. Yeah. And I had a couple.
You hit reset, by the way. How many times?
I think you keep doing it. I feel like every time you call IT, that's what they tell you to do. I don't know. Did you Control-Alt-Delete? Did you hit the reset button?
You don't just do it once, do you? You don't do it one time, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the option's there. I mean, I think you do it till.
You don't seem to get too pissed off either. Like, if you hit reset, you got to hit reset again. It's not like, oh, God, what's wrong with me? I got to hit reset again, right? It's just part of the process. Anyhow, reset.
Yeah, so I had a coach, and she asked me one day, and she said, Jen, is there some kind of acronym you can put your book into? I already had the book framed out, and I said, well, the acronym's reset. And just immediately I said, well, it's recognize, eliminate, structure, elevate, and transform. And so within those 5 steps, and I can walk you through those, within those 5 steps, I take the reader through exactly what I did, the exact same steps that I used to get a handle on my life. Wow,
I love that. Now, would you say, is it kind of, when I'm thinking of reset, I'm thinking take an inventory, right? That's kind of what the first thing I think of in a 12-step type of approach. So is your philosophy like 12-step, or it sounds like it's kind of integrated into personal development? Like what works?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of overlaps between the two, and you know, for recognizing is really saying, look, enough is enough. Like, no more excuses. So a lot of the same things that, and God is in there as well. I mean, or excuse me, connecting with a higher power, right? In whatever form that may take. And that's really the fundamental steps. But, you know, I failed for so many times. I always wanted what everybody else had. And I would be around friends and I would be angry because I couldn't have what they had. And so, and I failed.
Business things, or relationships? What was it that they had that you were thinking, God, I want that. I should have that. I deserve that.
Usually a drink. I wanted a drink is what I wanted. Yeah. But I think, yes, there were probably other things. In fact, a lot of the other things I thought would bring me happiness if I had a family, if I was married, if I had more money, if I was the president of the company. And I did look at a lot of those things, and I did have a lot of envy instead of being grateful for what I had. But specifically there, what a lot of what was holding me back and at least landing me in jail was 100% of the time was when I was drinking.
Yeah. Well, one big I like the whole name reset. I like the word reset. Like I said, I see it as something that you constantly do. I get frustrated with myself. Well, I have to hit reset again, man. But I think that's part of the program is that in life you're going to hit reset many times. The biggest topic I can think of to ask anybody right now, particularly in an opportunity like this, is the coronavirus. So I feel like I'm a character. My wife said this 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was 3. I don't know. I'm losing track of time now. But I feel like we're characters like living in a sci-fi movie. And so I thought I'd get your thoughts on it. I mean, there's so many different things that I've read and thought, and I've got every kind of conspiracy theory that's out there. I have my own ideas. I'm actually probably a little bit more. Actually, I am more conspiracy theory. I think something else is going on. By the way, I really don't just take this on face value. There's big things happening. Don't know what. Hope it's good. But so tell me about your coronavirus life.
I look at this as an opportunity, honestly, and I was talking on both CBS and ABC about this, about how, we have the decision in our mind of how we interpret the information, and I think, and that's power right there. If you understand that you have that power, and I think a lot of people, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and there's just a lot of the stock market and the deaths, and we don't know what's going on. And so, but what I encourage everyone is to take a look at what you can control and let that be your guide. So when we look at the death rate and the spread of the coronavirus, and we look at the stock market, and you look at your 401k, and you look at all of these things that are happening right now, you don't control those. Those are completely out of your control. And those are all the things that are making you anxious right now. Maybe got laid off from your job, right? You couldn't control the fact that you were laid off. But you can control, I don't know, is there spending within your household that you can whittle down for the time being? Yeah. Are you eligible for any government programs? So that's where you need to put all of your energy.
Something that's going to be useful, right? Something that's going to be useful?
Yes, absolutely. I find that when I try to control things that are out of my control, that's when I get angry. Yeah. That's when I get anxiety. When I'm on the road looking at all the drivers that don't know how to drive, but I don't control any of them.
Nobody knows how to drive but us. I swear to God.
I know. I'm the only one. I'm the only one.
Not hard. I wonder that myself. Who are these people?
Yeah. Well, I'm the only good driver. But it's an opportunity for us really right now, and it's to reconnect with our families. It's to reconnect with ourselves. It's a chance to pick up a hobby. It's a chance to get projects done.
I have to say, I go to part of my therapy is I go to the gym almost every day.
Yeah.
And I shoot some baskets. I like to do that. I like to lift weights. I like how it makes my body feel, and I like what I see in the mirror and just all the other stuff. And so it's like, God, my wife just keeps freaking buying ice cream. It's like, stop bringing ice cream home. Like, now it's Netflix and ice cream. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting fat again. I can't be fat. But I see this as an opportunity as well. There's something that we could be doing right now that's positive. I'm grateful to have this platform and to be able to connect with people and to serve our subscribers as well. But do you think what do you expect is going to happen in the end? I mean, is it just something you just say, what will be, will be?
I would hope that people are taking a chance to look at this as an opportunity. I think that there are some people that are going to walk away from this and nothing will have changed.
Yeah.
And
or you got better.
I think probably a large majority of us are going to fall into. I think the business to be in is going to be gym memberships after this, because everybody's going to get one.
Right, and diet pills.
Yeah, that's going to be the next fad now it's hand sanitizer, but it's going to be gym memberships. Right.
I hope we can go back to a world where it's not weird to hug each other, though. Either.
I do too. I'm a hugger.
God, man, I was thinking about it this morning, and I'm like, world's never going to be the same. I remember very vividly 9/11 and September the 11th, and after the shock of that first, went over like the first few days. About a week later, and I realized life is never going to be the same again. Like, there are things out of our control that are going to change. You can't go meet somebody at the gate anymore of an airport. Small things like this. But the world's going to be very, very different. And I see this as a magnitude many, many, many times more, particularly like in our social interactions. And I just was thinking, like, going to a ball game or any kind of going to church or any kind of a gathering, or, the simple thing of people connecting and hugging each other. Like, everybody's going to be thinking, I don't know. It's really strange.
Yeah, well, most people, I would say, that have been through some level of recovery or in recovery, I do believe that their awareness of gratitude is potentially at an elevated state. I think that's a part of a lot of our programs that we walk. And I hope that this gives the world a higher level of gratitude for some of those things, just like you mentioned, like a hug or being around each other, going to events together, things that we take for granted or that many people take for granted on a day-to-day. How nice would it be if more people lived in a state of gratitude? So I think that's just one of the things we can hope for that comes out of all this.
I know there's a lot of silver linings. There's some things that I look at that I kind of marvel. I like I'm very pro-American. I think Americans have this pride, I guess I would probably say, and I just think America is a really cool place. I like the ingenuity of Americans. I like the whole, I think America's got a lot of problems, of course, too, but I like the whole stories that you hear about. This company is making masks, and this company is, Ford is now going to create ventilators, and this is this. I like the entrepreneurial effort, the ingenuity, the wanting to be of service overall to others. I think that there's a lot of really cool things. And I also think that it has allowed, my wife told me yesterday that our 16-year-old daughter, who's wonderful, but she doesn't say very much, of course, to us, But my wife was like, yeah, we went out. She had to go get cat food or something like that, something necessary. And she's like, she was talking to me. It was like, really? Yes, and she was quite pleasant, So I think that this, maybe we're not connected with all the groups that we were, but we're connected back within our families. I'm grateful for that.
And I think that goes back to, where do you put your energy? Do you put it into the job loss, the markets crash, all these things, or can you connect with your family? Can you do that project? Can you do? And that's where you'll find your happiness, your peace, your comfort, and really just focusing on the here and the now.
I've got a good friend. I'll add this kind of to punctuate, and I'll probably think about this because the whole Corona thing has been on everybody's mind. Obviously not mine. But I had a friend that he has a local business. He installs home theaters, and so you can imagine that's not really a good business to be in right now for people to spend $20,000-$30,000 on a home theater and have a bunch of strangers do construction, and not really necessary. And he goes, man, we'll get through this, but then it's going to take me forever to make this up. It's going to I'm going to be behind again, like I was just, that kind of a thing. And I realized that what that is it's a comparison to what? It's really a comparison to others. So I love the whole idea of an opportunity, because what I offered him was, I said, yeah, man, but so is everybody else. So the virus almost kind of gives you a cover story, if you will. Nobody's going to look at you it's really our own story, right? But in our minds, nobody's going to look at you and go, what a louse, man. Everybody else is doing so well. What's wrong with you? So on one hand, it kind of gives us this cover story of what happened? Well, the freaking virus thing, just, turned my life upside down. Yeah, I did for you and a jillion other people. So I think that the idea of doing anything you can now while maybe everybody else is just waiting on the sidelines is a good idea. And so, I think it frames it in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about fear, because that was one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about, was fear, something I struggled with for my whole life.
Yeah, I reached out because I wanted to write an article, and I remember I was at this Blue October concert, and yes, and Justin, he was, and I was familiar with Blue October, but I just really hadn't listened to them a whole lot, and I wasn't very familiar with his story. And he is so incredibly vulnerable up on stage with sharing his story, and I was with a friend of mine, and we usually go to heavy metal concerts together. So this was actually sort of a little more timid for some of the music. Anyway, and he started talking about fear, and I immediately connected with him, and it brought me to tears.
For those that don't know, I'm going to interject right now. So Blue October band, love it. Justin Furstenfeld is the lead singer. The one that we're talking about is so beyond freaking cool. You can follow them on Instagram at Blue October Band. And Justin was one of our covers a couple of years ago. I absolutely just love that guy. Love all his songs. So I just wanted to tell everybody.
Thank you. No, I should have done a better job teeing him up. Said it like everybody knows. But, I remember, because I woke up in fear every single day for a decade. And when you wake up and you just are trying to find your breath, and you just gasp and you think, oh my gosh, what did I do last night? Or what did I not do? And those were the two thoughts that went through my head every morning. And I was just, it's crippling. I mean, it is absolutely crippling. And I remember when I got sober, it took me about 4 months, and I would still wake up and just, oh, Jen, oh my goodness. And I would have to tell myself, I'd have to kind of walk myself off that ledge and say, Jen, you're okay. You didn't do anything. You're okay. And I went through that, and it took me a good 4 months. But the good news story, the good part of the story is that you can get over that. And I think so many of us that have been stuck in an addicted body, that we have this fear that just, we can't get rid of it. It plagues us, and it could be in the morning, it could be at the night. It's constant. And once we can find that peace within ourselves, and once we've broken free from the addiction, that fear will go away. Your life can level out, and you can just breathe and wake up in peace. It is one of the most amazing feelings. And when I heard Justin talking about it, I just lost it. I looked over at my buddy.
He lays it bare, doesn't he?
He doesn't hold back, and I love that about him, and I respect him so much, because more people need to, I connected with him and I'm not the only one there that was, I think we all were tearing.
Everybody does.
Yeah. And so I just love how he has a platform and he uses it to really impact others' lives and be honest with his journey.
I think maybe, do you think everybody's afraid, or is it just some are more to others, more extreme, and we get anxiety? Like, what do you think about that? Because I'm thinking like everybody at a Blue October band's going, oh my God, like I'm so glad that you're saying this because I'm freaking terrified type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think probably everybody deals with something, and I know, I don't know why this popped into my head at first, but because I am 6'1" and I do wear my 3-inch heels all the time, it invites a lot of, I don't invite, but it invites a lot of interesting conversations to pop up in my world all the time, right? And I realize that some of those are just very benign conversations, but sometimes they stem from insecurities, right? And maybe their fears or so there's just, I think everyone.
That's more admiration, by the way. When I say that, I'm like, God, you are tall. I'm a guy that likes to I have to recognize the elephant in the room, and it's like, I know that you know that I know that you are really tall. So I don't mean it as like I mean it like wow, like that's remarkable, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I do too, actually. I think it's phenomenal, and you'll find me on a lot of like tall websites and stuff. I love it. But I think it's just so many people that I come across just because I'm sort of unique looking, I guess. They sort of give me a glimpse into their life, more so than maybe just average people walking around not having that type of interaction. And yeah, it really is. Walk a mile in my shoes. So my life is awesome. It's so funny. I'll write a book about it one day. But yeah, I think we're all dealing with things, and we're all dealing with fear, and there are insecurities, and I don't know what steady state is. I feel like I'm sort of getting there, but I feel like a lot of us just deal with the
Were
fear.
you afraid when you were a kid? Not that maybe you came from abusive or not. I don't mean like that, but like, did you have fears? Like, I was always terrified that I was going to flunk. Like, I remember being absolutely like just crippled at waiting for my report card from like 6th grade. I was sure I was going to flunk. Sure. Did you have? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so here's a funny visual for you, and I'm being 100% honest here. So I lived in Virginia, and in Virginia we had basements, and my parents had this huge pantry with food, and they'd send me down there. And I was like 5 or 6 or whatever, and I thought somebody was in my parents' basement, and they were going to steal me for my beautiful voice. So I would, right, which, it didn't matter if I had a good voice or not. I was just, that was how high my, self-esteem was at the time. But I thought somebody was going to steal me for this gorgeous 5-year-old voice that I had, right? And I would go downstairs and I would sing in my worst voice ever. And because I wanted to like make them go away, like, oh, they won't steal me if they actually found out that I had a bad voice, right? I would do this, and I remember doing that for so long. But that's what popped in my head. So yeah, I had fears even as a child. I have no idea what made that get into my head that somebody would be in my parents' basement.
Let's talk about the recipe to cure fear. Or is there a recipe? Is it like the reset button? Is it something that we're just always going to have to deal with? Can it be smaller? I think I know the answer. I think that it does become smaller, but like, what's your recipe? What's your formula for curing fear?
I think a lot of it, again, kind of comes back down to what can we control. And I think we get ourselves spun up into fear because it's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of the future. It's a fear of the, and so I think when we focus on what we can control, I think that helps to certainly minimize a lot of that.
So let me jump in and say, like, are you afraid of it? What are you afraid? I mean, I'll just purposely put you on the spot. Like, what are you afraid of now? Don't tell me nothing, because there has to be something. I mean, what are you afraid of? I could give a whole list, by the way, right off the bat.
So I have a fear of getting fat. I'll be honest. It's probably not a really good one, so that's kind of, You know, I worry about my family. You know, I think that's certainly,
Your
you know,
parents
my,
are older, like that's for like right now time type of thing?
you
Your
know,
parents?
I worry that they go out in public and, you know, and I tell my mom and she's like, why? Because we're old. And I'm like, look, it's just kind of, you know,
Yeah,
just
that's why.
why, you know, I want you to be careful and I love you and all that. So, you know, I think that there are fears. I can't control that though. I can't control. I mean, I can control my what I eat. I can control that, but
Yeah.
I think I can minimize. You know, I think there's always something in the back of your mind, but you got to keep telling yourself that that you can, or that you don't just push yourself through that. Tell yourself that you're worth it. Keep putting positive messages into your brain, and I really think that helps to minimize it a lot. And like even with getting fat, well, what can I do? Well, I can work out. That's what I can do versus the fear of the unknown.
There's a few things that come to mind with me on that, and with the getting fat, what can I do? I remember a guy talking about affirmations, as a matter of fact, and he was saying that doing affirmations for a minute is better than, like, maybe you should do them for 5 minutes or throughout the day, but he's like, doing it for a minute is better than not doing it at all. So, well, what is working out going to do? I'm so fat. Well, doing it a little bit is actually better than not at all. I also think that I was telling my daughter just the other day, there's an old saying that getting started is halfway done. The hardest part, God, and you're an author here, the hardest part is just getting going. And once you get going, you can build a little momentum. With fear, I think of another saying, of course, and it was like something that said, grab a thistle, a thorn, gently, and you get pricked. If you grab it, harshly, it crumbles in your hand. So for me, kind of struggling with fear, I think action cures fear. I'm going to confront this straight on because it's intolerable, right? The only thing to fear is fear itself, and I'm going to confront this straight on. And then I find that it seems to build courage as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on action and getting into motion and things like that as a remedy.
Yeah, I did want to add I think one other thing, letting go. That was one thing, but before we change topics, and really understanding that, accepting and letting go. Because I think a lot of times we're fearful of the past, right? And these are things that if we let them go, then we can let ourselves go of that fear. And so that was one other thing that came to mind. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that in there. So I got us off topic though, but I felt like that was good.
How does faith? And so we haven't really been talking all about fear and anxiety, not really an anxiety, but just fear and the coronavirus. But how about sobriety? Like talk to me about what kind of role does faith have for you personally in sobriety, or what are your keys there? I mean, we covered kind of the obviously at the beginning the 7 sweet words, but faith. How does that play a role for you, or not?
Yeah, I had always, I grew up in a Christian household, and I always thought, okay, yeah, I've God, check, go to the next step kind of thing. And there were points throughout my life that I had a closer relationship, and there were times that I was further away. And I had done that enough where I could look at my life and say, okay, things were a little bit better when I was mildly close to God, and they were significantly worse when I was further away. So I knew there was a correlation there. And when I made when I sat down with the gentleman that told me, that had the conversation with me that day, that told me I needed to learn to love myself, I cried out to God and I said, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's yours. Like, this life is yours. And so my faith has become huge. And I remember when I found and I joined a church, and just how emotional they brought us all up front. And I was, everybody's lined up smiling. I'm crying. Like, it was just because it meant so much to me, because what I failed so many times is it wasn't a check mark. It wasn't, oh, hey, God, I need you to do this for me today. All right, thanks, bye. We'll check in next time I need something. That's not what a relationship is. That's not going to work in a physical relationship.
Maybe you should date God, actually. Maybe you should date God.
I like it. Date God. Yes, I love it. And so, I really started to understand the concept of making it into a relationship and getting into your meditation and talking, and not just talking, but listening and really just opening your mind. I mean, there have been so many bumps in the road since I've gotten sober, and I just say, you know what, God, you got this. You got this. And it's funny because, people in my life, it's almost like they want to bring in the drama. They're like, they want to bring in the fear. Going back to fear, this is a good way to handle it. Give it to God.
I totally agree. I'm a big believer in a few things. Number one, control. I think that fear for me is and depression, by the way, is I think actually depression and fear are really the same thing, by the way, I think, in my simplistic. But I'm a real big believer in, some people say, well, we control nothing. Well, I don't really believe that. I can do push-ups right now, or I can go for a walk, or I can make a phone call. But I think about and not put down the list like as a to-do list, but do right now. Right in this moment, like the 5-second rule, whatever that person's book is, the 5-second rule, like get up and do something right now. Control the things that you can do right now. And then the things that you can't control, I not only just say, oh, give them over to God or whatever, your higher power or whatever it is, but I try to, I read a book somewhere and the guy was like, this guy lives his life almost like we're in a movie and he knows the ending is a happy ending, and it's like this adventure. So, instead of being in the story, the character, and we're in the middle of it, rise out above it and look down as if you're spectating on your whole life, like, wonder how this will turn out. Like, look like he's gotten himself into some deep shit. Like, this is going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. I know it will, but it'll be interesting. That's kind of my spin on it.
Yeah, I love that visual. I do. I think that if we know that there's a greater plan, then things happen and we have our own agenda, right? Like, I didn't expect to go into the office and get laid off, but what happened as a result of that? Look at all these doors that opened, or look at all of these things but I didn't have that purview because I'm not, I'm just standing in front of a Monet. If you take that step back, which is, the perspective, the perspective that your higher power has, and you say, you know what, there's something bigger at hand. Look, this whole coronavirus, there could be something you said, there could be something much bigger at hand, but we only see what's happening then in the midst of it.
I just figured, and I said, I'm probably a little bit of a tinfoil hat wearer, and admittedly, but I think a lot of the time stuff's true. I just don't really buy the mainstream narrative all the time. So I got all this information. One of them was that it's not even a virus. It's caused by 5G. Now, I've seen that 10 times. It probably gives you an idea of people that I'm connected to, I would suppose. That was one thing. And then another one was it is biowarfare. And then another one was, Trump is taking down all the pedophiles and all. I mean, there's all this kind of stuff. And I figured in the end, I'm like, you know what? There's none of that, whether any of that is true or not. I don't have any different decisions to make. There's not any different path that I would take. All I know is I can't go get a haircut right now. Like, I need a haircut and I can't get a haircut. That's my reality. All the other stuff I don't know. And I'm pretty sure that God is not going, well, God, I I said to myself, I never expected that, All of this is, there's something bigger that's going on, is what I feel, and I can't get wrapped up necessarily in exactly what it is. There's something going on. I know there is, but I don't know what it is.
Yep, and I think it's in our human nature to want to try to justify things, or we need to know, and so and I tell my clients, like, let's make this negative situation and turn it into a positive, right? I mean, I had to address my anger, and I used to just get so angry about, I don't know, somebody parking in my parking spot or something, or bad drivers or something, and I would say, gosh, they're such a bad driver, and it was such an angry situation for me, and I would turn it around and I would say, you know what, but maybe there's pregnant woman in the vehicle. And then I was okay with it, right?
Isn't it interesting, the story that you tell? Doesn't it reframe it completely?
Completely. And so, you know, if you just tell yourself, if you just put a positive justification on it, then okay, all right, and then just move on, right? But we have that nature that we want to justify things in our mind. So just make sure, and I had to that's part of my book. I mean, that's part of my program is I went through and I wrote things down and I said, how can I change this? Because my brain would always go to the dark side, but it's just it's human nature that we want to.
And the dark side is they parked in my spot, they cut me off, they did this, they're stupid, They don't care, they're this, that, and the other, which is our story, right?
Yes.
So we can frame it around with a story that serves us.
Right, right. And then we're okay with it. Like nobody who's driving their pregnant wife you'd be like, oh my gosh, what a jerk. Yeah, park here however you want. It's all yours. You can take 5 spaces.
That's so cool.
You know? So
what's the hardest part for you about sobriety, or do you even think about it now? You know,
hardest part. Oh my gosh, my life is so amazing, and it gets more amazing every single day. Like, I don't know, I have tons of energy. I have all this time. I have better friendships. My face has improved. My body has. I don't know what is hard about sobriety. I mean, it is the most beautiful life. There is nothing that I don't get speechless very often. I don't know.
That's powerful. That's really
honestly, I love who I've become, and I was in such a dark place. Seriously, my life is amazing. So I'm going to have to get back to you, but don't hold your breath because I don't think I will.
Let's take off on this amazing part. So tell us like what's going on. Obviously, your book is making big waves that's out there. Like, you know, take us down the runway a little bit. Like, what's going on now? What's happening? What's on the, you know, what's to come in the short term of this trip that you're on, and where are you going to? What do you aspire to do even?
So the book came out. I am currently working on the Audible, which is such an amazing thing to do. I've never been so aware of every time I took a breath. But so working on an Audible. I have an online course that's going to be coming out. I've put a lot of time into that. Obviously, I've got my one-on-one coaching that I do and motivational speeches. I have started my second book. And I'm working with a lawyer. We've trademarked Reset, and we have one more trademark that comes.
Reset is trademark. How's that possible?
So there are several Reset trademarks that are out there, but my methodology and the acronym that I use, that's what things.
That's Sugermeyer in there, and it's probably wide open. I'm guessing.
100%. I love it. I'm like, as long as you spell my name right, you'll find me. I'm the one and only. But you know, and so you ask about what does the runway look like? Yeah. So when I sat down with the lawyer, I said, think big. I don't want to think just here and now. Like, let's put this for conferences. Let's put this for, and so I've got this, 5-year plan in front of me, and I just want to keep getting the positive message out there to as many people as I can, and I started this with,
what other authors, so that I have a track of where this is going to or who you aspire. I was thinking, like, what other authors, speakers, influencers influence you?
I love Rachel Hollis.
Okay.
I think she's really great. She's just honest. I think she's amazing, and I love her style of writing. We're probably I don't know if she would say that we're similar, but I'm going to say it. So, but yeah, just kind of laying it all out there for people and saying this is how it is. And she's just a great motivational speaker. So.
Don't you abhor pretense? I like to be real with people. That's one of the things I love about recovery is I love the honesty about it. And I like the whole idea of laying it out there. And I think that when you do to other people and you can connect, that it brings down this, it creates this common denominator where you really can much more authentically connect. It's one of the things, like I said, I'm the most grateful in the magazine and the platform and the whole community, the cornerstone being authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able to break it down in a way, I've really had to learn to speak in stories, or talk through stories. And it's been amazing how many people you can connect with that you might not think you would have that connection. And if you just really get honest with yourself and you just expose yourself and have those conversations that none of us are different, and we might be a different flavor of ice cream, but we're all ice cream, and we all share so many of the same things. But when we're honest with ourselves and with others, we can just make some really amazing connections all around the globe. It's amazing.
I don't think I've ever heard that. That's so cool. We're all different flavors of ice cream, but we're all ice cream. That's really, really true. I mean, and I think that we always think that we're so different from everybody else. Nobody else can understand. Nobody else would get it. But truth is, I think that we're so much more alike than we ever could imagine. I think it's amazing. So how do people get in touch with you? What can they do to connect? Yeah.
Yeah, so JenSugermeyer.com, sugar with an E. Yeah, so it's SUGERMEYER, so all E's, no A's. I think Hooked on Phonics is the only one that gets that one right. But Jen Sugermeyer, you can Google me, but it is JenSugermeyer.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all over. But my website hub is the hub for everything. That's how you can get in contact with me. I have everything from podcasts out there. I talked about the freebie. Go out and get that. Learn how to date yourself. You can find a link to your book or to my book. You can find one-on-one coaching. There's so much. I even go into the corporate office and we talk about how we can increase revenue. I mean, there is just unlimited things that are out there on the website. So JenSugermeyer.com.
I absolutely love that. You are a really, really cool person, and I think anybody's going to be well served to really connect with you. And I told you guys, we only have guests that are on that are really interesting, and talk about interesting all kinds of different subjects. So I just appreciate you taking the time. I really enjoyed this. I hope that I'm sure that our subscribers will too. And thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for having me.
If you hang on just a second, I'll stop the recording.